Hello, welcome to the Claret and Blue podcast. Do not adjust your iPhone, iPad, TV, whatever you're consuming this episode on, whether that be audio only or YouTube. Hello, you can see my face. That looks very glum and downbeat. I've just seen the news about Boubacar Kamara's injury from Jacob Tanswell in The Athletic, reporting it firstly. And Jacob usually spot on with these things. The line in there, speaking to sources who wish to remain anonymous to protect relationships, that good old chestnut, that Boubacar Kamara is expected to miss the rest of the season. Nobody needs me to tell them that is a disaster. That's terrible news. And I felt like we had to cover it and discuss it in some way. Now, I've not sought clarification from John and his sources yet, because he's currently flying to Turkey for Villa to face Fenerbahce on Thursday. Kendrick's in the office. Of course he is. What are the chances of that? The one day I actually need somebody, there's nobody around. Unusual for the Claret and Blue podcast for me to sit here and waffle by myself for a bit, so please do forgive me for what I'm sure will be inane ramblings for, 10 minutes or so. I kind of come to expect that during a season you'll probably miss Kamara for a month or so, and tends to pick up his fair share of injuries. But for what should have been really an avoidable one, I still don't think, obviously absolutely easy to say with hindsight, and we said it on yesterday's Q&A, Kamara shouldn't have played against Tottenham. And I thought that before the game, and because of the risk of injury, you feel like that competition, as brutal as it is not Villa's priority. I think the Europa League is more important, and finishing in the top four is more important. And Villa look good still to go and do that, in my opinion. Kamara is a big miss. Obviously, like, understatement of the last 6 years of the podcast to say, oh, you know what, we might miss Kamara. Yeah, of course we will. But Villa have still got a good squad, and it means that other players are going to have to step up in his absence. What compounds the Kamara injury is Onana is also injured for what was a 2 to 3 week period. He will hopefully be back sooner rather than later, and he needs to himself stay fit for the rest of the season, because he will, if available, play every single game now. And the McGinn injury as well, which, as I'm doing this at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, we are yet to hear anything about McGinn's injury. Now, if that's 2 or 3 weeks even, that's also a blow. If Onana is not back in the next couple of weeks, you're without 3 of your midfielders that play every game. That's obviously going to be really, really difficult. Some tough games coming up as well in the next couple, Fenerbahce and Newcastle. To not have Kamara, potentially Onana and McGinn for those is going to be hard. So, losing Kamara is bad enough. I think he's one of Villa's best players. So to be without one of your best players obviously makes everything that you want to achieve much harder. Can Villa fight on all 3 fronts, qualify for the top 4, win the Europa League and go and win the FA Cup? With a full-strength squad, that's very, very difficult if you're missing Kamara for the season, Onana and McGinn for however long. An injury to Ollie Watkins at the moment leaves you with nothing else. An injury to Ezri Konsa or Pau Torres gets another, and you all of a sudden things look very, very different. On yesterday's Q&A, John said that he didn't feel like we needed another midfielder, and that was obviously before the news of Kamara. And I wanted to do an episode with him, to be fair, to see if his viewpoint has changed, and I can't see how it wouldn't change. John's point was, for those that missed it, is we probably can't sign another midfielder on a permanent transfer and put that expenditure out there, pay their wages, pay a transfer fee without letting someone else go. But for Kamara to miss the season, for Onana to be unreliable, for McGinn's injury to be an unknown at the moment, if we did have Conor Gallagher available for the weekend, he'd be a great addition. He would bring energy. He would bring something different. At the moment, you're looking at Tielemans, Bogard and Hemmings as your only midfield options, I think, off the top of my head, which is, good players, particularly Tielemans. Obviously, we know how good he is. Bogard and Hemmings are still relatively unproven, really, particularly Hemmings. So now rely on them to play away at Fenerbahce, away at Newcastle, home to Brentford, Wolves, Leeds, all these games that, whilst some of them might look easier on paper than others, it's a lot to ask. So there has to be some kind of midfield recruitment. Villa clearly need a striker or a forward to replace Daniel Marlon, but they've got to do something to replace Kamara. And whether that means sacrificing somebody in the squad that they don't particularly want to, for example, if it is 1 in, 1 out, then Ross Barkley has to leave, who is also, unreliable. I completely forgot him, I guess. He's also unreliable with injuries as well. If you can shift Barkley on and then bring in a midfielder that is better than Barkley and can replace Kamara for the short term, then that would be something Villa have to look at. If there's no suitors for a Barkley, but Villa have to operate on a one-in, one-out policy, maybe they do have to sacrifice somebody like Buendia, who at the moment you probably wouldn't want to do that. But if it allowed you to bring in a proper midfielder, a number 6, then I feel like you have to. I'm fully aware that for those that are watching this, I'm probably just staring into space, just kind of zoning out a little bit. It's a blow, the Kamara injury. It is. It can't be kind of understated how I can't quite articulate how bad that is. But we've been through this period before. It would be some crumb of comfort. We've missed Kamara before and still gone on to achieve things in terms of European qualification. So, I mean, I was asked in the Q&A yesterday that I said a few weeks ago I was 100% certain Villa could qualify for the Champions League, and I'm not going to sway from that. It'd be too early for me to flip-flop on that decision, or that prediction, sorry. But qualifying for the Champions League is going to be a hell of a lot harder without not just Kamara, but as I say, for the moment, Onana and McGinn as well. That's a blow. There's no other way of saying it. It's good that Villa have been so good in the first kind of half of the season that we've been able to build up a buffer of points that the teams below us still need to do a job. Now, could I see a bit of a drop-off from Villa? Yeah. Obviously, we're missing players and we don't have the financial flexibility to just go and fix it. This is the frustration that I've got with the rules. If Bruno Fernandes is injured for 6 months for Man United, they'll just go and sign somebody tomorrow to replace him. If Man City the same, Liverpool the same, it's a different playing field. And we're expected to challenge with those clubs and try and finish above them. Fair play, Villa, well done. You're doing good things. You're qualifying for the Champions League. You're outperforming other clubs. Here's your reward. Can't spend. You can't go and solidify that success and build upon it because you've got to be in line with the rules. And I get it, rules are there for a reason, but they're not there for this reason, right? So we can't just go and have the freedom to identify a player that we want, i.e. Gallagher, pay what the club are asking, pay what the player wants, and get the player that we want. If it was as simple as that, yes, Kamara missing is a problem. McGinn missing is a problem. Gallagher, decent. We can't do that. And that's the real frustration. Who are we going to get potentially on loan who's going to be able to come in and be as good as Kamara? Probably nobody. So if Villa are to qualify for the Champions League this year or win a trophy, whilst they've had to deal with what they're dealing with, and by that I mean the financial side of things and the injuries they've had to deal with over the last few weeks in particular. I mean, Pau Torres missing for a fair chunk. Martinez has been in and out. Ollie Watkins hasn't been on form. Onana's been in and out. McGinn now injured. Kamara injured. If you can still achieve something with all of those things going on in the background, then Unai Emery's even a better manager than I thought. And the players who are available are even better than I thought because they're going to have to dig in now. Someone like Bogard, if he's going to have to play regularly, is going to have to seriously step up. Hemmings looks a tidy player, but he's 18. To us to throw him into the deep end and be as good as Kamara is, again, a really tough ask. So, yeah, there is no easy way around this of, everything's perfect, everything's rosy, this player will just step in and we'll be good. That may happen. Maybe we go to Newcastle on Saturday and win, and we go, that's better than we thought. But the task becomes much harder without somebody of Kamara's quality available, and that's a real blow for Villa, which I've probably said about 10 times during this. I understand that this little podcast is a waffle from me. I've got nobody to bounce off. I've got no one to ask questions. I'm normally asking someone else the questions. It's not for me to give my opinion for 20 minutes straight. I'm not Bardell sitting here on my own for 25 minutes. It's difficult. I'm going to stick with what I've said over the last few weeks. This side is still a good team. I still think we will qualify for the Champions League next year. Whether that's by winning the Europa League or finishing in the top 5, who knows? I think it probably will. I do think we'll finish in the top 5 still, possibly top 4. I think when we had potential aims for maybe not a title race, but can we solidify 3rd? Can we be a team that is always up there? The points gap suggests at the moment, yes, we can. Well, it goes two ways, doesn't it? Not only do Villa have to fall off a little bit, the other clubs below us have to keep winning. So yeah, Villa lose 3 games and Chelsea win 3 and Man United win 3. That points gap evaporates and all of our good work is kind of for nothing. It's where you finish the season that's important, not where you are at Christmas. And at Christmas, we're in a brilliant position. But you have to remain in that brilliant position come May. Otherwise, what was the point of any of it? Villa can afford to fall off a little bit, and they may do so with the injuries they've got, but the other clubs behind us still have to do their job as well. And Man United have still got their own problems. Chelsea have their own problems. Newcastle have their own problems, although they may beat us at the weekend. Villa just have to chip away at wins as and where they can. We've said for a while now they probably need around 70 points, which would be another 7 wins, is it? So a quick fact check, seeing as there's no one else to correct me. I mean, 70 points would absolutely guarantee top 4. So even say late 60s, Villa need 7 wins to get to 64 points. A couple of draws in there as well. Maybe an 8th win gets you to 67. So there's 16 games remaining. You know, to win 8 or 9 of that 16 is absolutely achievable, even with the injury issues. Villa, just for everybody's sake, we want to get there as soon as possible, right? We don't want to be playing Man City and Liverpool in the last 2 games of the season, potentially navigating a Europa League final, thinking we have to win those games to secure top 4, because if not, it's out of our hands. Villa have built up such a good position that they have to have it wrapped up by then, in my opinion. And there are absolutely 6 or 7 winnable games coming up in the next 10 or so fixtures. You know, February, as we've said, looks decent enough. If they can kind of dig in deep and whoever is available can raise their game a little bit and help get us over the line, that's what we need at this moment in time. We can't rely on, Kamara will be back in a few weeks, it won't be that bad. Well, he's not. At the moment, we hope McGinn might be back in a week or 2. Well, what if that's a season ender as well? And now 2 to 3 weeks might become 4 to 6, becomes 8 to 9. We have to touch wood that some of the injuries aren't as bad as we maybe fear, but the players that are fit and available firstly have to stay fit and available and have to step up as well. And any recruitment we do in January has to be spot on. You know, we need our Rashford and Asensio of last season to come in and make an impact. And that will give the players that are available a lift as well. If it was, for argument's sake, Tammy Abraham to come in and he scores the winner against Brentford or Wolves, and he's the match winner, that will give everyone a lift, and that will be 1 win closer to Champions League qualification. Villa's task remains the same. It just becomes a lot harder when they're dealt with injuries. But, you know, the chasing pack behind us, Man United, Chelsea, Newcastle, whoever it is, they will have injuries as well. They'll have things to contend with. So it's not just, oh, poor Villa, we can't spend what we want and we get injuries. Other clubs are in the same situation, or will potentially be in the same situation. We just have to keep winning games. And that is just a little bit harder now than it was 6 weeks ago. I think it will be easy to fall into panic stations if Villa don't do well over the next couple of games. Fenerbahce and Newcastle both away, but they're tough games and they could quite easily lose either one of those. But I think it's important to look at the fixtures ahead into February and think there's 5 winnable games there. The task is much harder to go and win those games when the squad is depleted. But if we sign somebody that helps us and helps the cause, then by all means, there's no reason to kind of write the season off just because Kamara is injured. It's bad news, obviously, but there's still a good squad there that can go and win football matches without him. I just wish he was available, like we all do, because he's a brilliant player. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well, whether that be on the Spotify feed or YouTube or on social media or the mailbag, wherever it is. I'm sure people have plenty to say. If anyone can spin this into some kind of positive to cheer us all up, please do. I'm sure everyone's pretty down in the dumps about it. But, you know, we're Aston Villa. We've got Unai Emery. We've got a good squad. I still think we can win plenty of games and achieve what we want to this year. It just becomes a little bit more difficult. But thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Claret Blue Podcast, a bonus one I didn't really want to do, but here we are. Normal service resumes. Hopefully John and myself will be catching up tomorrow on Wednesday, and Kendrick will be joining me for the Fenerbahce post-match on Thursday. Okay, thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.